After the beginning of World War II in 1941, the Navy had to develop a anti-submarine program. And so they looked around, they didn't have quite the aircraft to do it yet, they didn't have enough surface units to go after submarines, particularly in the Atlantic off the east coast of the United States. So anyway, they looked around, they said, well, we could develop a lighter than air program again, and using what we call blimps now. These are non-rigid airships. So in 1942, the Navy came back into this area. They needed a large base. And at that time, the Army Air Corps then moved out and went further up into the valley and developed other air bases for training and things like that. So from 1942 on, the Navy's back in using the Moffett Naval Air Station, and from 42 on to 47, then this became a lighter than air base. In this area, we have a lot of the lighter than air things. This is the area this covers the time between 1942 and 1947 when the last lighter than air unit left Moffett Field. The Navy continued their lighter than air program up until about 1961 when they were using blimps for the for early warning radar and things of that kind, but then they finally went totally out of use in about 1961. During the period 1942 to 1947, there were a number of squadrons. There were 3 squadrons operating on the East Coast. A squadron down in Santa Ana, a squadron here in Moffett, and a squadron up at Tillamook, Oregon, and they patrolled the whole Pacific coast, all the way from Canada down to Mexico, looking for Japanese submarines here. On the East Coast, they had the same operation there, and of course they were interested in the German submarine fleet there, which had been attacking Allied shipping since early in 1940. Once they got the lighter than air aircraft over these ships that were crossing the Atlantic to England, carrying supplies and things, they cut the losses of those ships way down. In fact, once they started covering closely with lighter than air, they were able to get that down to almost 0 losses, and so they made a terrific change in the war in the Atlantic in particular. Let's see, these are. These airships are non-rigid. They have no skeleton inside. And, it's a gas bag with a couple of airbags inside, and they had a speed of about 65 miles an hour, and they carried crews of about 10 to 12, and but they could stay out over the water for 12 hours at a time, and they patrolled at probably 2,000 feet, and they were much smaller. They were probably these were about 250 feet long as compared to the Macon that was 785 feet long. Here's a picture here showing one of the big hangars across the field. Hangars 2 and 3 were built in 1942-43 for the blimps. Here we have 9 blimps inside the space that would have been used by the Macon for just 1 airship. So they were quite a bit smaller. But there were a lot more of them. They had about 120 of those altogether. The United States Navy did. Okay, we're standing in front of Hangar One. This is the hangar built for the Macon in the early 1930s. The construction started about 1931, and the air station opened in 1933. This hangar then was used for the Macon. These big doors on the end here open, they're called clamshell doors, and they open, and the Macon would have gone in and out at this end. It can also go right through the building and go out the other end. There's 2 doors at the other side too. So this hangar then was used for the Macon for only about a little less than 2 years, and the Macon was lost off of Point Sur down near Monterey, and that was kind of the end of that program until, of course, the Navy arrived again in 1942 to conduct the blimp operations. The hangar's about 200 feet high inside, 198 feet, and 1,138 feet long. It's huge. It has a floor space of probably about 8.5 acres, and of course was used later on after the Macon was lost. It was used for lighter than air and then aircraft operations for up until 1994, when the station was closed down. The hangars across the way, hangars 2 and 3, are about the same size, a little bit smaller. Those are built out of wood, whereas Hangar One is built out is a steel building, and those were used for blimps during World War II, and then of course aircraft heavier than air aircraft operations after 1947. And the Moffett was used for was a master jet base for a while, and the fighter jets were here for a long time, and then then of course the last major thing was the VP squadrons that were used to patrol for Russian submarines during the Cold War. They were here from 1961 to about 1994. You're probably all familiar with the Lockheed P3 that you used to see in the flying around here every day.